Greg told us that I believe there are 100 ways to know if your spouse is cheating or about to cheat. The most obvious way is to walk into the bedroom and find someone else on top of her. My suspicion of Holly's potential infidelity arose in a less obvious manner. It was unusually cold on Saturday, and one of my tasks was to change the winter tires on Holly's Escape. When I got into her car, I laughed because the heated driver's seat was already on. I turned it off and drove to the local tire shop to wait for them to change the tires. When I got back home, Holly was already dressed and waiting for me. "Greg, I need to go to the mall. Do you need anything?" Some men might worry upon hearing these words because it means the credit card is about to take a serious hit, but Holly earns her own money, never overspends, and most importantly, it means I can relax and watch Saturday football in front of the TV. Holly didn't let the relaxation continue, trying not to sit in front of the TV all day. "The kids need some father's time, okay, honey." 3 hours later, Holly came back home with a bag. I thought 3 hours was not bad. Then I remembered something. "Honey, I left my sunglasses in your car, you forgot them." I put them in the console. I went to her car to get my sunglasses, and as I reached for them, I couldn't help but notice that her side of the seat heater was back on 3, but why was the passenger side on 2? Back home, I found Holly in the kitchen. "Did you go shopping with anyone today?" Holly made a strange face, waited a second before answering. "No, why do you ask?" Damn it, she must have lied to me. "No reason, I just thought you went out for a while, wondering if you had lunch with someone else." Holly turned her head, pretending to do something at the sink, when she answered, "No, I was alone." The passenger side heater set to 2 was the catalyst for my suspicion. I told Holly I was going down to the basement to cross off a few things on her to-do list. The silence of the basement gave me time to think. With half an hour of solitude and reflection, I realized that all the signs had been there recently. Coming home from work without sharing the details of his day, being forgetful about our home and family, being harsh on my smallest things. Yes, the signs were all there. How did I recognize the signs of a cheating spouse? Because I had experienced it before. My first marriage broke up because of infidelity, but not my wife's. I was the cheater. I was the one who came home late or worked on weekends. I was the one who forgot to bring the groceries on the shopping list in the morning Carol, my first wife, gave me. I was the one who cared a lot about small things and quarreled over them. My affair lasted for 4 months, and when Carol found out, the affair started in the most common way: a little flirting, a friendly lunch, a general discussion about our partners and their shortcomings. Soon after, the friendship developed into an intimate relationship. Carol trusted me and would never suspect anything. If it weren't for my cheating friend's husband showing her the photos of us taken by his private detective, Carol would be shocked, saying she couldn't believe someone would betray her trust in this way. Although I swore loyalty for the rest of our lives, she said, "You swore to leave everyone 2 years ago, see how it turned out." 3 months later, I was single again. The truth is, I really loved Carol. My affair was a foolish display of machismo that led me to the brink. I deceived myself into thinking it was just a friendship, and the other woman I shared with would not affect my relationship with Carol. In other words, I was stupid, just like millions of other foolish cheaters every year. A year after the divorce, I moved from Atlanta to Seattle. 2 years later, I met Holly, pursued her and got married. I told her about my first marriage, but I didn't admit to adultery. I just said my first wife couldn't accept my immaturity at the time. It wasn't exactly a lie, just not the whole truth. Why? 'Cause suspicion. I could have learned my lesson and never cheated again. Holly and I have been married for 6 years, and we have 2 children. When temptation came again, my job required me to attend training every 6 months. 20 agents meet twice every 3 days at our headquarters in Dallas, and basically the same 20 people attend each meeting every year, and eventually we established contact, formed friendships, and even some signs of infidelity. One of them is a woman from the Cleveland office, Karen Bates, a beautiful single woman in her 30s who seems to enjoy my company. We talked during breaks and lunch breaks. One night, maybe it was my 4th class in Dallas, she asked if I would go out to dinner with them. It's a small group of 7 people. What's the harm? It's a fun group. After dinner, we ended up at a bar with a dance floor and a band playing. I danced with Karen and 2 other women. A few hours later, I looked at my watch. It was midnight in Dallas and 10 o'clock in Seattle. I left the bar without saying goodbye to anyone. Back at the hotel, I called Holly on my cell phone. A drowsy Holly answered on the second ring. Holly, it's me, Greg. Did I wake you up? BC is fine, baby. I'm glad you called. I'm sorry it's so late. I went out for dinner and had a few drinks with others. I wanted to call and tell you I love you. I'm walking back to the hotel now. Should I call you when I get to the room? No, baby, I'm glad to hear your voice. How was your day? It was too long. I'm leaving tomorrow at 3 and arriving at Seattle Airport at 6:30, coming home for dinner. I miss you. I miss you too. The kids do too. Safe flight. I can't wait to see you. I wanted to continue the call, but I didn't want to keep Holly up late. She's holding down the fort at home, taking care of the kids and going to work. It can be exhausting, and I want her to rest before I get home. Tomorrow we hung up the phone, saying I love you to each other. As soon as I entered the hotel, I opened the door, sat on the bed, and broke down. God, that was close. One more drink, one more dance with Karen, and we might be sleeping together now. What saved me was the sudden realization of all the warning signs of my first marriage breaking down. That night, I vowed not to destroy my marriage to Holly in the same way I did to Carol. In the next 4 years, I was able to keep my promise. I avoided Karen Bates and some other temptations I encountered. I'm not George Clooney, but I have the power to change if I want to. But I held on, and as far as I know, so did Holly. With a new sense of direction, I climbed the stairs and walked into our kitchen. Our 2 children, S and Barb, were sitting at the dining table, chatting with their mother, who was preparing dinner. It's worth fighting for, but I need to know how far Holly has gone. Has she crossed the line and fallen in love with this guy? Where's the line? I felt Holly's eyes on me as I walked into the room and took a bottle of beer out of the fridge. I sat down among the children and joined the conversation. Holly looked at the 3 of us and smiled. At that moment, I realized she loves me. So why would she risk our family? Or am I jumping the gun? I tried my best to act normal and clueless. All weekend, we even made love before going to Sunday service. On Monday morning, I asked my boss for some free time to deal with personal matters. He was generous and gave it to me without asking too many questions. I made some calls and arranged to meet with an investigator in the afternoon on Monday. I sat in the reception area of Sullivan Investigations, waiting to meet with Jack Sullivan. When the receptionist announced me, I walked into his office. Jack was a big guy who reminded me of a TV show my father liked to watch when I was a kid. What was the name of the actor with a mustache? Frank Conrad or something? Jack saw the look on my face, my blank stare, and laughed. That's Frank Cannon, played by William Conrad. That's what you were trying to remember, right? I can't read minds, but I often get the same question look. My wife says I should shave my mustache, but it's more fun this way. Jack and I exchanged some pleasantries before getting down to business. If what you're telling me is true, it won't take more than a week. We'll have a 2-man team conduct some surveillance and gather what you need to make some decisions. It won't be more than $10,000, and if you agree, Sheila needs to sign, and I'll have 2 agents on it by Wednesday. $10,000 sounds high, but considering everything, it might be cheap in the long run. I agreed, shook hands with Jack, and signed the contract at his secretary's desk. On Friday night, I returned to Sullivan's investigation office, holding my breath. Greg, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that your wife hasn't slept with him yet. By the way, the jerk's name is Derek Turner. Derek Turner is Holly's boss. I've seen him 3 or 4 times at Holly's work events. I never held him in high regard, and I have a feeling he thinks even less of me. He always speaks to me in a condescending manner. I have to admit, he's a handsome man, about our age, and in good shape. As that thought crossed my mind, I noticed Jack looking at me, waiting for me to be ready to hear the next part. I nodded, and he continued, the bad news is that she might be about to hook up with him. He invited her to a business-related trip out of town in 3 weeks. She hasn't committed yet, but she's definitely on the edge. My 2 agents follow them on Wednesday and Thursday. One sat next to them at a restaurant on Wednesday, and the other followed on Thursday. Neither agent was spotted. I can assure you that there was no obvious sign of affection on either of these days, no hand-holding, kissing, or any physical contact. We were able to record conversations on both days. The agents carry special bags with parabolic microphones. I'll give you the tapes from both days so you can listen for yourself. There's some background noise. You might need to listen a few times to get used to it and hear everything that was said. I borrowed the tapes from Jack, actually 2 CDs, and I treated them like poison. There's more. Based on what we heard on Wednesday, I followed Turner after work on Wednesday and Thursday night. He went straight home on Wednesday, and on Thursday he met someone at a bar after work. They didn't seem to care that they were in public. I couldn't hear the whole conversation, but I heard enough to realize that your wife wasn't their first target. From what I heard, I confirmed this morning that another man is James Young. Turner reports to Young. It looks like the previous victim was Karen Johnson. Your wife is the replacement for Miss Johnson. Young asked Turner how the seduction was going and made it difficult for him when Turner told him that she was resisting. Turner said he thought he would succeed once she went on this business trip with him. He thought a little alcohol and dancing would overcome her hesitation. He even confirmed what we had on one of the lunch break tapes, that Turner was tempting your wife with the possibility of a promotion in the future if she got involved in this project. Jack waited a few more seconds for me to digest all this. He offered me a cup of coffee, pouring it from the pot on his desk. I declined, already too flustered. Jack continued, I can't stand guys like that. I wrote notes immediately after their conversation. The conversation took place in a public place, with no expectation of privacy. My notes could be used to bring a civil lawsuit against those two at the company. If you need me, I will testify in the trial records and in court. I will charge less than usual, just to nail these guys. The cost so far is almost half of my initial estimate. If you need your wife to be followed this weekend, it might use up the rest of your deposit. I only considered for a second. No, I will listen to the tapes, but if this is all that has happened so far, maybe we can get through this. I will talk to her tomorrow. There's no need to delay unless she surprises me. She will agree to counseling, which should help. I need to consider litigation now. I'm now inclined to agree that those two should be hurt. Jack shook my hand, wishing me luck and telling me to let him know if I need anything. We will settle next week, just in case. I came home early and listened to the CDs on the computer. Derek Turner spent most of the 2 lunches trying to seduce Holly. He took some time trying to convince Holly that I must have cheated on her when I was in Dallas for training. I was pleased to hear Holly defend me when Turner was saying bad things about me. He tried to convince her that attending the next meeting with him would be good for her career. He was about to be promoted, and Holly had a good chance of getting his job when it happened. Turner took the time to praise Holly's looks, intelligence, and abilities. When he said that meeting in a more intimate setting, outside of work, to see if their feelings for each other were more than just friendship, Holly interrupted him and said it was time to go back to the office. That was the end of the recording made on Thursday. I felt that Holly was resisting, but succumbing to temptation. The attraction is understandable. I've been there before, and I know it happens. If someone had intervened before my affair, my first marriage might have survived. It's time for an intervention to save my second marriage. I called Holly's parents and asked if they could babysit the kids that weekend. Holly's mom was excited about the opportunity. I picked up S and Barb from school, drove home to pack, and dropped them off at their grandparents' house to be spoiled for 2 days. Holly called at 5 o'clock to ask if she could come home late and have a drink with a few colleagues. When I told her no, to come home directly, that we needed to talk now, she was shocked. Can it wait until now? If you want to continue being married to me after this weekend, it can't wait. What are you talking about? I'm talking about divorce. Holly looked like she had been crying when she walked through the door. Greg, what's this about divorce? Where are S and Barbara? They're at your parents' house. Tell me about your affair with Derek Turner. I don't think I could have surprised her more than if I had punched her in the nose. Her eyes widened, and she stammered, I've never cheated on you. I took a chance and exposed her bluff. There are other types of cheating. Just because you haven't slept with him yet doesn't mean you haven't cheated. Now tell me what happened last Saturday night. Holly froze. We were just talking, I swear. Why Saturday? Don't you talk a lot when you're working and eating together? Was I followed? You can't dodge the topic. Tell me about your meeting on Saturday. I picked him up at his house, we went shopping, had lunch together. I dropped him off at home, he invited me in, but I said no, then went home. No kissing, no hugging, no touching, no caressing. When he got out of the car, he tried to kiss me, I turned my head, and he kissed my cheek. I swear that's all. So did he go shopping with you? What did you buy? Now Holly looked scared. A dress and some other things. Stay there. I ran upstairs and looked in her bedroom closet. The bag was half hidden behind her hanging trousers. In the bag was a little black dress, a pair of high heels, and worst of all, white silk underwear. I went downstairs, grinding my teeth. What is that? Holly covered her face with both hands. She had been crying since I left the room. Derek made me buy a dress and high heels in case he persuaded me to go to the conference with him next month. If I don't go to the conference, then when you ask me out, I'll wear it. And the underwear? Holly buried her head in her hands again, crying. I'm sorry, he bought these for me. What are you going to do? I don't know, but I swear I haven't done anything with him, nothing physical. But I can't finish. Will you divorce me? It depends on whether you want to continue being married to me. Are you ready to end it with Turner? Yes, I want to be your wife. I never doubted it, and you shouldn't have. Yes, I don't want to be alone with Derek anymore. Holly stood up from the chair, walked over, and sat on my lap, resting her head on my chest. I'm sorry, please don't hate me. I considered pushing her off my lap, but I couldn't do it. I don't hate you, but if you're going to break up our family, that will change. Holly and I talked that night and all day Saturday about how we would continue our lives. If I had any doubts about Holly's love for our children, they were eliminated when we picked up the kids on Sunday morning. We decided to see a marriage counselor together. Holly needed to reconcile her love for her family with the temptation of an affair, even though it was clear that Derek Turner was an experienced seducer. For example, Holly said that on Monday morning, Turner asked if he had seen her shopping, and when she answered that I hadn't seen the bag, he turned it into another insult. Look, your husband doesn't care about you, he might have a girlfriend on the side. I told Holly the only reason I didn't ask about her purchases was that I started to suspect something, and I needed time to think without losing my temper. I decided to tell Holly why my first marriage failed and why my second marriage almost broke up. I think the counselor can help me tell Holly the truth in a way that won't break up my family. To be honest, our relationship can benefit from a boost, and the right counselor can help us. We also decided to contact Holly's HR department to file a formal complaint against Turner. Although Holly was angry after reading Jack Sullivan's notes about Turner and Young's conversation, everyone in the office wondered what happened to Karen Johnson. She resigned without saying a word to anyone. Holly kept resisting until we met with our counselor on Tuesday. She convinced Holly that it was the right move, and we brought back the dress, shoes, and underwear. Although I would have loved to take Holly out in that dress or take the underwear off her lovely body, I couldn't look at them because Turner had chosen them. It's been a year since that weekend, and both Derek Turner and James Young have been fired due to Holly's complaint. The HR director listened to the tapes, read Jack Sullivan's notes, and had a follow-up conversation with Jack. Neither of them received a severance package, they were simply shown the door quickly. Holly heard that they threatened to sue, but they backed down after being threatened with a countersuit. Speaking of lawsuits, Holly received a large check from the company and a letter from our lawyer, and she didn't say anything after signing the application. We might have been tempted to pursue the matter, but Holly's company did the right thing, they got rid of the bad guys and settled with her quickly. The counselor really helped us work through the issues. Holly was surprised and hurt when she heard the real reason why my first marriage failed, and when I told her in the first meeting that I almost cheated on her. The reason I decided to confess was simple. Holly needed to know that she wasn't the only one who could be tempted. If our marriage was stronger, she wouldn't carry the guilt. After all, neither of us crossed the physical boundary, which made the emotional boundary we crossed still destructive but not unforgivable. I truly believe that Holly and I are happier now than in the first year of our marriage. Both children are doing well. It might be easier to raise children when the parents are two adults who love each other. A few important lessons have been learned. First, don't use another person to replace the emotional support you should get from your spouse, especially when the other person has a reason to create a barrier between you and your spouse. This may start with a friendly dinner but usually ends up in bed. Second, if you're doing something you're ashamed to tell your spouse about, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Third, communicate. Do you have a problem with your spouse? Let him or her know. I'm not naive, some marriages, communication and information sharing won't save, but if your marriage is worth saving, take the time to communicate. Anyway, that's my 2 cents, and they're worth every penny.